All right, so welcome to Get a Grip podcast. This is our first guest, two-time Olympian, Sergio Pessoa. A little bit about myself. I am a two-time Olympian as well, and I am the owner of Tritton Performance. Sergio, welcome to our show.
How's it going, man? Everything's good?
Good, man. Good. Good to have you here. Thanks
Happy to be here. First time on a podcast. Feels weird a little bit.
That's all right. So
we're not on the mats.
That's all right. That's all right. So obviously, we grew up, a lot of our career together.
Yeah.
Some of the audience maybe don't know you from the BJJ or wrestling world. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you grew up, and, your background in judo and how you ended up in Canada.
Okay, great. So my name's Sergio Pessoa, also a two-time Olympian in judo. Participated in the 2012 Olympics and the 2016 Olympics. And I started judo at the age of 4 in Brazil. So basically my father, he's also an Olympian in judo. He was representing Brazil at the time. 1988 Olympics, that's when he first went to the Olympics. Later on, he became a coach for the national team in Brazil. And then in 2005, that's when we decided to move to Canada. My father had received an opportunity to become the coach of a small judo club in New Brunswick, which is called Hanagata Judo Club, in a small community called Kedgewick. So
that
we moved there.
That must have been a crazy shock coming into Canada from Brazil.
So we moved from a big city, Sao Paulo, 20 million people, to about 2,000 people community. So it was a big shock, but it was fun to live there. It was a different experience for all of us, and we learned a lot of things. And especially seeing the snow first time, it was quite something. But also the focus was really to get a new life, and the lifestyle was much different, much more calm here in Canada. So it was very good for our family. Today I look back, I'm like, thank God we came to this country because it's a beautiful, beautiful country.
Yeah, actually, like when I first heard that you or somebody, was coming to Montreal, didn't know it was you at the time. There was a bunch of people talking at judo about this, superstar kid from New Brunswick, and they were moving to Montreal. And I was like, okay, well, I've been around the judo world, maybe the resources weren't the same as they are today in terms of, the internet and understanding, who's coming where from what country. But I was like, all right, well, who's this New Brunswick kid coming to Montreal?
Montreal, yeah.
Then it turned out it was, I got a little bit of a backstory about your dad and, being an Olympian, and that you were this up-and-coming kid. And, from what I heard was that there wasn't ever a tournament that you didn't medal at, before you came to Canada. And I was like, well, I got to meet this kid, who is this kid,
Oh, when I was a junior, that's when I moved to Montreal, and obviously, I was already at a good level in Brazil. I went to many Pan American Championships when I was a juvenile and, cadet here in Canada's cadet level.
Yeah.
So I was actually at a very good level, technically, and also, I had my dad behind me, so he was my coach. And, when we moved to Montreal, obviously the goal was to train with the best. Like Montreal is known for, the national training centers here, so all the best judokas were here. So I'm actually I was lucky that my dad had an opportunity to become a coach at a different club here in Montreal, and that allowed us to move to Montreal. And, I was, introduced to you and many other members from the national team. And, from there, I think it was just like my own personal goals, that kicked in. So I wanted to become a high-level judoka and, eventually, be part of the Canadian team.
Yep.
So it was basically just starting from the bottom and, working my way up, because I had an idea of like how the system worked at the time.
How old were you when you moved to Montreal?
I was 17 years old.
17, yeah. Because I remember I was in the, judo club. I was just starting to take results internationally.
And I remember you were performing really well. I was looking, who's this Nick Tritton guy? This guy was medaling everywhere. International tournaments, European tour.
Yeah.
You're a superstar back then too.
Yeah, back in the day with all my hair. So
you had this long hair.
Yeah, I had my long hair.
I saw this guy in the gym like doing chin-ups. I'm like, who's this guy with the long hair?
All right, so we got a little bit of a background of you and your father. Your dad was my coach for a good amount of time in
you guys
Montreal.
went together to
2008 Olympics.
Yeah.
Sergio Sr. was there. So we were glad to have you on the team. And I remember, when I first really saw you, and I think you won Vise. I'm not sure. Did you win Vise?
That was 2007.
Yeah,
my
and
first time when
I was like, who is this kid? He just beat Zantaraya. I'm like, okay, this
having
kid's
a good progress.
This kid's
on the
for real,
international scene.
So okay, let's get into some questions. Obviously in our podcast, I want to touch on maybe touchy subjects a little bit. It's nothing personal or anything like that.
Yeah.
But want to get into a little bit of politics, stuff like that. So, first question I had: what do you think about the state of judo in Canada, and what the future is looking like as a whole?
I think judo has substantially got better over the last couple of years in terms of results. We now have this amazing facility, right, at the INS, which is the National Training Center, in which you have the best. Not only the weight room is fantastic, the mat area is fantastic, everything is great. So you really have the best facility, maybe the best facility in the world to
it's
prepare
for sure
your athletes.
There.
And there's a couple of things that have been done in a couple of years to really bring the athletes to the next level. Some athletes have been doing better than others. Some could have been doing better if they were receiving a bit more funding and But overall, the big picture, especially now that we have a couple of big results on the international scene. We just had last year Krista Deguchi win the World Championship for the first time, and so that brings some attention to judo. Let's say you compare judo to different sports, right? Now judo has a world champion. Antoine now has a couple world medals and Olympic medals.
Three-time world medalist. Yep.
It's the popularity has increased about, I think there's a bit more attention to the judo, players and the judo team. If you compare this to other sports, I think there's a bit more attention to judo now. On the level of results, like I said, it has increased, but I think there's still a little bit of room to do a little bit better. Like I said, some athletes are still underfunded, so they have to pay for their own trips and things like that. So that creates some sort of barriers for them to get to the next level. I remember me, and you probably had the same thing to go through, especially when you had a downturn in your career, if you had an injury or something like that, you had to pay trips from your own pocket and things like 100%. That. So that creates some additional barriers for the athlete, which is good for them in a way because they have the opportunity to overcome those barriers and get better, not only as a person but as an athlete as well. But in general, I think the funding could go a little bit more towards the athletes, and maybe they can travel more and do more events throughout the year and do more training camps. They already do a lot of training camps, but if more people can have this opportunity, more athletes, then I think it'll be better for everybody.
Yeah, I think
increase the opportunities.
I remember going through the stages. When I was an athlete coming to Montreal, the goal was to move to Montreal, train with the national team. I do agree that we should centralize in our country.
Totally agree with that too, yeah.
People that don't agree with centralizing in Montreal, I just think, for the amount of talented people, we gotta centralize and train together, have the same goal.
The country's so big, you can't have 3 different regional training centers. You know, though the regional training centers are doing a good job to feed, the athletes. You have one in Alberta, one here in Quebec. They used to have one in the Maritimes. It's feeding the system, which is good because, in a way, you're getting the top athletes, those that really want to get to the next level. They understand that they have to move here, and here there's opportunities for them to go to school and things like that too. Good universities.
So I'm going to bring you back a little bit. You were talking about budget issues and going over, where we could save money, where we can, build our program. I think they've done a fantastic job of moving the training center out of where it was before.
Judo
at Judo Canada. Judo Canada, is a landmark for Judo Canada.
Yeah, it was a good spot, but just at some points we're lacking space.
100%.
Especially at those interprovincial training camps and sometimes even international training camps with the U.S. Some American guys would come in and it would be so jammed, you could barely do randori. So.
Well, I think Judo Canada as a whole is growing quite a fair amount since I've retired, just in terms of resources. When I was training, weight training was really optional. You know, like the top guys, they went. But, you know, the number 2 guys, you know, they were never seen in the weight room. Not that the weight room was big enough for everybody.
Having appropriate, like, following, like, from a coach, right?
You know, we started having, you know, nutritionists, stuff like that. But, you know, and I totally agree with you, with the resources that we have today, you know, 24/7 doctors, 24/7 nutritionists, 24/7 high-level coaches. Hot tub, sauna, recovery room, cold,
and everything within the
everything.
same building, which is like very convenient. Like, if you want to go do your physio, it's there.
Yeah.
If you want to do your masotherapy, it's there. The weight room's, you know, right there. So basically, in terms of the resources and the facility, it's the best facility that you can get for, you know, to really get you to the next level and for high performance.
And I really think the high performance team has shown results because of that, you know. Yes, we've gone out and, you know, hired, you know, coaches, and we've gone out and hired nutritionists and everything, but just the resources in terms of the training facility itself, you know, it's more professional. You're not going into a basement anymore. You know, like at a church, you know, you're going into
100 square feet gym.
Yeah, you're going into a
10 feet by 10 feet.
Phenomenal training facility. But all right, so I just want to bring you back to, you know, we were talking about budget and, you know, where Judo Canada has gone. You know, we've seen an increase in the budget. You know, I have the numbers here from Judo Canada's, I think it's 2018 budget. I don't know if it's increased, decreased, it's similar amounts, you know. Do you think that Judo Canada is doing a good job with making sure the budget is going to the right places? Do you feel like maybe they're spending a little bit too much on some things and a little less on others? Like for me, and you know, we're going to talk about this later with USA Judo, you know, we'd go to the World Championships, they would have 14 staff with them. And you know, at the World Championships, and don't quote me on this, I don't know if that was funded or not by the people, but you know, we had all of our coaching staff, we had our physio, we had the president of Judo Canada, we had a media guy, we had, you know, we had a bunch of stuff. And, you know, you got some kids that are, you know, top 20 players, top 25 players in the world that are self-funding themselves to these events.
I was one of them.
Yeah, you know, I've self-funded myself too, you know, and what do you think? Do you think,
I think
the system is...
To be honest, like, I think, I don't know the budget in terms of numbers. I don't know exactly where the money is going, but I would just like to see more like the money being spent on the field of play. When I say like going more to the athletes and the coaching staff. I think sometimes, like, you know, like you said, let's say like I'm number 1 in my category, and I'm top 20 in the world, and I have proven myself to be, you know, the best in my category. And why the hell do I still have to pay for my ticket to go to the World Championships? And, you know, there's another guy who's the video guy, and he has a fully funded ticket, and, you know, a hotel paid for, and all the food paid for.
And I find that one funny too.
And that, for me, it doesn't make sense. And, you know, if you open the budget a little bit, then the money... If the money's being spent more on the athletes, like funding maybe one extra athlete, you never know if this athlete down the road, like 4 or 5 years from now, if he's going to become like a top competitor. It might be, if he keeps in a good path, and, you know, he might, you know, not do so well in the first couple of international events, but, you know, if he gets more exposure, if he gets more like experience on the international level, eventually, and that's from my personal experience too, in the first couple of events, I was already at a very good level, but with more experience, you get more used to, like, you know, the pressure that comes with those bigger events, right? So I just think like you look at like an example like soccer, you know, like the money's on the field, you know, the money's is being spent 100%. On the players, the coaches are well paid. So, you know, I would just, from my personal experience, like, you know, sometimes I had to take, you know, money from my own pocket and pay like $5,000 trips, and that wasn't easy. You know, I was lucky that at the time I was still living with my parents. I didn't have too many expenses to pay. Like, I didn't have an apartment to pay, and to be honest, like, us athletes, as amateur athletes, we're not paid that much, right? Do you remember? Like,
100%.
Our salaries were like $2,000 a month, and, you know, what can you do with $2,000 a month? It's
especially
very limited,
paying,
you know. So if you make
overseas.
$2,000 a month, but you have to pay a $5,000 trip. I mean, we're talking small numbers here, right? $2,000, $5,000, it's not a lot of money, but, you know, and if the money can be be spent more in the right places, like going more towards the athlete. Not just talking about trips, talking about preparation, talking about training camps, talking about many different things, right?
Yeah. When I go back to, the budget and, athletes that are carded, obviously, it's centralized. We want all our athletes to be centralized.
Yep.
And, I have two examples from athletes that, are still at, when they were performing and they chose to move away. And, those guys ended up losing their carding because they chose a different path. Mm-hmm. But they still were proving. Like, I'm going to use Catherine Roberge for an example, okay?
Yeah.
She chose not to live in Montreal. She said, it's not the right training for me. And she moved to Quebec City. Everybody in Judo Canada kind of brushed her off. Oh, she's not going to do results. Then she turns around and takes top 5 at the World Championships for the first time in her career. Do you feel there should be some, room for negotiations?
Yes and no. Like, if you give the exception too many times, I think people are going to take advantage of this rule or exception. Let's say one person, decides to go and, live in a different city and being coached by a different coach or whatever. It might happen, and this person might be still at the highest level and be the number one player. But from my point of view is that if you allow one person, then if another person comes in and say, okay, now I'm moving too because I feel like I'm more comfortable in my hometown, training in my hometown, even though the coaches might not think this is the best solution or best training scenario for them. Some people have different reasons, right? Some different personalities, right? So I would agree that, the centralization is not the best for everybody, but for the overall picture of the team, and having like a consensus, like in which everything is the same for everybody.
Yeah.
I think this should be a rule that if you move out, we cannot be giving too many exceptions. One exception here, and then another guy is going to come in. Okay, I want to move too. So then it's going to be decentralized, and we need the numbers on the mats. To be honest, even though we're a big country, our population of judoka, it's very small.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like you're looking at countries like Brazil, Russia. They have the opportunity of, even if they don't all train together, they're still getting a very quality.
I think most countries are centralizing
training
now.
and their own clubs.
I agree 100% with what Judo Canada is doing in terms of centralization, keeping the money inside. With athletes that choose to take the route that Judo Canada wants them to take. I just wanted to get your point of view on that.
Yeah, so it's a valid point. Like you said, it's some goods and bads. If you centralize, that's good for bringing everybody together, but it might not be appropriate for everybody because people have some different personalities. Some of them might miss their family a little bit more than others.
Yeah.
My personal experience, like myself, I was lucky, like I said, to have my parents very close to me. They were living in Montreal, so for me it was very easy transition to go to the National Training Center and train full time. For me it was a no-brainer. Plus I was going to university in Montreal, so everything worked really smoothly for me. But for some other people that have to move from a different province, let's say like from Alberta, for example, BC, and Quebec being like a French province, you have to learn how to speak French, and you went through this. It wasn't easy 100%. In the beginning.
It's not easy.
How was for you when you moved here?
It's tough. You're moving away from your family, moving away from everything that you know. I think it's more difficult for people out west. And I like what Judo Canada is doing with the coaches out west and really having them trying to push the athletes to Montreal when they feel they're ready. We don't want to have them here, just as training partners. We want to have them, ready to improve. So, all right, we'll go on to the next one. So, it's no secret, you're sponsoring this podcast today.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your business and how you've managed to go from, athlete to business owner, and now, you've taken over Judo Canada. You go to a lot of these tournaments and everybody's wearing Matsuru.
Well, we have yet to take over, but I think we have done a good job, growing the brand. So I started this about 5 years ago now, late 2014, 2015. That's when we started with my old partner, Josh. You know Josh, one of our good friends. So basically, the idea was to, at the time, you know, we really started small. Like, I remember the first order we got was just like a couple gis, like, and I was bringing these gis to like a training camp that I was teaching at to show the gis, and I ended up selling like all the 10 gis that I had in my bag because people liked the brand and they liked the gis itself. So that was our first experience with Matsuru, and we then, after we saw like the success of the gi and how people were liking it, then we decided to go with our first big order, you know. But the first big order wasn't that much, you know. So really, and at the time I was still an athlete, so I didn't want to go too big on the business side, just because like I was still focused, you know, on my athletic career, and I had the Olympics coming up. So I was really focused more on my athletic career, and you know. Eventually, when I decided to retire in 2017, that's when I really started to change the focus from my athletic and personal career to really the business, you know. And I think at that point, that's when you give your 100% effort and focus. That's when the business really started to take off. You know?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's pretty difficult what you did. You know, you're still competing for a berth at your second Olympics. We'll go into a little bit more about, you know, the injuries that you sustained. You know, I remember watching you dislocate your hip in Korea. That was not fun.
That was quite something.
And, you know, just taking that gear change from athlete to entrepreneur, you know, while you're still competing, you know, that's pretty cool that you did that.
No, I think it's important to have like an after career sort of plan, and my plan was really to work with my businesses. At the time, I also had a small judo club that I'm still today. I still help out with the judo club a little bit with teaching and all that because it's a passion. I like to teach, and you know, I run clinics across the country and all that. But you know, it's important to have a plan of transition, like, because you know, we're not going to be athletes for the rest of our lives. You know, we have to, you know. And I was lucky to have gone to school and have a background, and I ended up doing something totally different, and I graduated in finance. But, you know, it gave me a really good base to like start my business, you know, and really transition from athlete life to like entrepreneur. And I think having done judo all my life and having to, you know, fight for my own personal success helped me with the business side too, because, you know, it really depended. In the beginning, really depended on the person that's running the business. At the time, it was me and Josh, you know, but later on, you know, it was just myself. And then I'm like, okay, if I'm 100% into this, I got to give my 100% effort. So the discipline that we learned in judo that really helped me to transition that into the business aspect. And I think now, just because now we're taking the proper steps to grow the business and being disciplined, we really have taken the business from a small to like now a bigger scale.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a little bit of a point that, you know, not a lot of people, including myself, you know, as athletes, we're not preparing for retirement. You think you're going to have this endless career. You know, we're not making money. You know, when I retired, I was zero. You know, I had no money.
You have debt because you have to pay for your trips.
That's it, you know. So, you know, when I retired, you know, it was a big transition for me. Obviously, I was going through some personal stuff too when I retired, but, you know, it was a huge transition. So that's one point, you know, from an athlete's perspective, you know, what do you think? You know, should an athlete in the back of their mind always be preparing, or should they be 100% focused on, you know,
I think it's good to have an additional thing that you're like preparing in advance before retiring, just because the moment you retire, it's very tough on the mental aspect, just because, you know, you think of yourself as an athlete, right? In your entire life, you have been performing, some, you know, even if you're not like a high performance athlete, you still had this like thing that you wanted to give your best and perform in front of people and, you know, prove yourself to your friends and family. And then all of a sudden this stops. So you're not going to events, you're not getting that adrenaline from the tournaments and things like that. So emotional, it's not very easy. You know, the first couple of months, it's very tough. And I understand some athletes going through some difficult times in the transition. And this can be from like the regular athlete to like the Olympic medalist. You know, you see all the time, like, you know, Olympic medalists going through some really tough times in the transition. And the success on the athletic scene does not always translate well.
You look at Michael Phelps, right? Michael Phelps is open about, hey man, I was in a bad place. You know, I didn't know what I was doing. You know, and you know, I was just trying to find that rush,
balance,
that balance, you know.
And I think having something on the side, in a way, without taking away your focus from your athletic career, you can still go to school. You can still have like, let's say, a small little thing that you're passionate about. Let's say it can be anything, right? Oh, I like to play video games, and I want to be good at it, so I play a little bit more video games. Whatever passion you have on the side. Obviously, video games are not going to help you unless you're a big, these days there's some big,
some money on there.
Some big broadcasters are making money, but, you know, in a way that not only it keeps you busy, in a way, like not only having your ideas 100% on only judo, because that can be like sort of that detrimental in a way, and also preparing yourself for your after career. So when you're done, at least you have an idea, or you have tested the waters a little bit into different things.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you went to school like in finance, or I don't know, physical education, and you want to become a teacher, and you already tested the water to see if you like it, and if this is going to be a decent route for you once you're retired. You know, so I think that's important to have like a plan, and to start, you know, thinking about how am I going to transition after my athletic career before retiring, because when you retire, it's tough. You know, like you have no money, you're broke.
You know, when I retired, like I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
I had 2 kids. I had a mortgage payment. I had a car payment. You know,
that's not going to stop, and you need to provide for your family, right?
So and I wasn't expecting to retire. You know, and so that made a big transition there. But you know, I think it's good for everybody watching to understand that you do need to have a certain type
backup
of
plan, at least something
plan
you
throughout.
Started. Education, I think it's important. A lot of the carded athletes, if you're not taking advantage of it, I mean, some people don't, but you know, if you're a carded athlete, you have free education,
school,
free university, so why not take advantage of it, you know? But if you don't like to go to university, or if you don't want to go to school, maybe start something small on the side. Teaching might be a great route as well.
Yeah.
At first, I thought I was going to become a coach. You know, after Matsuro came in, then I went more to the route of entrepreneurship and building businesses. But in the beginning, I sort of wanted to become a coach, and that's one of the things actually I wanted to maybe ask you back. What do you think, like, perhaps like on Judo Canada or Judo, like the other provincial federations, what they should be doing to like help athletes transition to coaching?
I've said this
coaching
since
like
day one. I said
positions, you know.
You got a bunch of athletes that you've spent, you know, technically hundreds of thousands of dollars
and hours building,
and tons of time building these athletes, and then as soon as they retire,
that's it.
See you later. You know, one's going to be a doctor.
No retirement plan.
One's going to work construction. One's going to work at Home Depot. That's great.
Yeah.
But those are the best athletes that you've had. And if you look like at a country like France, and you remember going to those training camps, we're lined up the athletes. The coaches on the other side, there's about 400 coaches on the other side.
And they're all professional
And
coaches.
they're all professional coaches.
They earn their living.
They might have another job, but
judo,
they're still involved with the judo. And, you know, like I look at like... you know, and it might not be what they want to do after their career 100%, but for those ones that are, hey, I want a coaching job somewhere.
Yeah.
There should be a little bit of almost, you know, a
incentive.
Like an incentive
right?
from Judo Canada and the provincial associations to keep those athletes involved to help build the sport and continue to build the sport. I think
even
in
if
recent
you're not
years,
an Olympian too, like even if you're like you've been to the national team but you haven't reached the Olympics, it doesn't matter. Like you're still like, you might become a really good coach, you know, like you're a great athlete. This could transition into a good coach or not. You know, sometimes good athletes don't transition well into becoming good coaches, but
just having that presence on the mat.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, I had a brown belt coach, okay, when I grew up. The first time I saw a black belt, I was just like, whoa, you know, this guy has a black belt. And we take it for granted.
Yeah.
I remember watching Rendezvous Canada when I was like 13, thinking these guys were, you know, the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
You know, you come to realize later on, they're just your peers.
Yeah.
And there were some very good athletes there. But, you know, if they just show up to judo, even if it's once a week, and that's what I did at my club, you know, any black belt, any retired guy, you know, I had Brendan Job there while he was still studying here for 2 years, coming on the mats, former national champion, had a bunch of guys, Miguel Raymond, Max Raymond, a ton of people that were coming out and helping out. So it's important.
I think this thing about, and I think they should probably be doing something to help the athletes transition from athlete to coach, maybe giving some incentive, maybe actually offering a position that maybe it's not the highest paid job, but at least it's something they can transition slowly into a coaching career without, having to start working at the Home Depot to pay the bills. Or nothing wrong with working at the Home Depot, but you've been an athlete your entire life, and maybe you have a taste, or you want to become a coach, but you have sort of like pretty much zero opportunities unless.
And even if it's like a part-time thing, that would be a great option. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna, ask you a tough question right now. All right, so with Judo Canada, okay, it's no secret, the CEO of Judo Canada, is a partner in your competition, like your competitor in your your career, your company, with gis and martial arts and stuff like that. How has it affected your relationship with Judo Canada?
In a way, it's more like a cold relationship. I used to have a very close relationship with them. Now it's more like on a cold sort of level. Sometimes I get emails like, you're not allowed to come into our facility now, and things like that. I sort of stay. I don't get too involved into the politics because I'm running my business full time. Already we're so busy. So I sort of stay away from the politics a little bit. But yeah, it hasn't really affected my business, to be honest. We do our own thing. We have our own clients. I think there's room for everybody. Yeah. But in a way, it is like a bit of a conflict. It has affected in some way in terms of contracts that we could be getting, but we're not even getting offered those contracts because you know how it is. Politics. There's always politics in business. But
that's why I said they're going to be tough questions.
Yeah, but I don't want to go too much into this. But to be honest, I think we have been doing pretty well with just building the brand and being focused on growing the company without having to think too much about politics. And I don't get involved, like I said, I have my own things. I have my.
But do you think, again, I'm going to use this thing, Judo Canada, you spent a lot of money on yourself too, but Judo Canada has spent a lot of money, time, and energy building you up.
Yep.
Do you not think that you could be, a poster child of Judo Canada, or they could give you a little bit more support?
I mean, I don't really like to ask for support in a way. I like to do my own things without really asking for help. I don't like doing that, But I've done my part of really promoting judo across Canada. I don't know if you know,
but
I
mean. That's what
I run clinics all across Canada. I've run multiple clinics, countless clinics, And that's from Nova Scotia all the way to BC, and clubs and provincial training camps. And I even went twice to the Yukon, not Yukon, the Northwest Territories to run a camp there and to help, with the technical aspect for some of the athletes. And I enjoy doing that. It's my pleasure, my passion. I like running those clinics, but you're not getting the rewarding thing from their part. You're not being rewarded in a way. Oh, hey, good job. Not even I'm still a show dan. I haven't even received a dan or a second dan or a third dan for my participation, involvement in judo. And I don't like to ask. I just haven't had time to really, apply for my my second belt, my second black belt degree, and really go through the process of training and doing the kata and those things. And like I said, I don't like to ask for dans, but it would have been nice, a two-time Olympian to receive maybe a second dan award or maybe a third dan.
Yeah,
now.
I mean, I remember.
I should be a third dan, in my opinion.
I received my second dan after.
I'm a showman, man.
2008 Olympics, No, I just think, and not just with Judo Canada, but the provincial associations.
Yeah.
They have an athlete from their province that is still involved with the sport of judo, and you have a business, this and that. And I'm talking a personal thing. If they go and have a club, I really believe that, I know Judo Quebec, Judo Ontario, all the provincial associations can't really pick and choose and really promote one club. They're promoting judo as a whole.
Yeah.
But I think Judo Quebec has done a good job of this, by inviting the Olympians, when
to
do those clinics, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
and I think that's, I think Judo Canada needs to do a little bit more. It's not up to just the provinces to, put these athletes after they retire or when they're still current in their careers on a pedestal. I think they should be pushing these all the time. And, we haven't, discussed on anything, but, we have a world champion, 100%. She should be our poster girl. She's a world champion. She's the first ever world champion.
We have other people.
But we have the number 2 girl,
Jessica.
behind her, Jessica, which I don't see really any advertising on her.
Yeah.
And I think, she should be in the spotlight too.
She should also be the face of Judo
Canada,
or
we have
be promoted more, for sure.
The top 3 judoka in our country are, Deguchi, Antoine, and then Jessica and Shady are kind of the, 3-4.
Yeah, Shady has emerged in the
Shady's coming up, but I think
years,
they should be.
But Jessica has been performing she's outstanding. She's a great judoka. Yeah. She's number 2 in the world, so she's right up there with Deguchi. Maybe she hasn't beat Deguchi in the last couple of fights, but she's still the number after Deguchi. She's the number 1 player. So. And she's in Canada, so you can use her as well to promote judo across Canada. Maybe
I think they've done a little bit with Antoine.
Obviously now it's the Olympic year. You don't want her traveling to teach kids.
I think they've done a little bit with
Let's see after
Antoine,
the Olympics,
but,
what
I think
they do
should be using
and how they use their athletes to really promote judo across Canada and grow the sport. Because, in a way, I was doing the clinics on my own without the help of Judo Canada or anything like that. I was, contact provincial organizations, federations were contacting me, seeing if I was interested, and I always said yes because, for me it was not only for my own personal pleasure. Yeah, we get a little bit of money here and there, $500, $1,000, but it's not big, But it's mostly to help, really grow the sport. If you're going to Saskatchewan or Manitoba, where you don't get to see those big athletes in terms of Olympians very much, and you bring in an Olympian, to really show, some techniques and really interact with the judo, because I think that brings an extra dynamic.
You kind of bring me right into my next question, and that's to do with the coaches across Canada. Yeah. Do you feel we have the right coaching staff in place across Canada from the provinces to get international success? I'm not talking about, a junior national champion and then he quits when he's 19. Yeah. I'm talking, do we have the right coaching staff in place across Canada? In Quebec, we're lucky, we're spoiled. We have a ton of clubs here. Yeah. But across Canada as a whole, are we developing? Do we have the right coaches in place from Western Canada?
I believe
Canada
so.
To Eastern
I
Canada?
think it has got better over the years. They're even bringing coaches from overseas sometimes to fill positions that really in a way it's sometimes hard to find coaches from within Canada, so they have to go overseas and bring some coaches from outside. Yeah. Which I think is good because that gives a different perspective of what judo. Some of them are Europeans, so they have a very good exposure to European judo, and that brings another good aspect to our judo, and it diversifies a little bit the styles and things like that. So that's a good thing. Across Canada we have the coaching courses, they're all out there, so you just have to get certified and, go through the ranks and, start at the club level, provincial level, and then eventually, if you really want to become a full-time coach, and if you have the opportunity, right now there's not too many opportunities, to become a high-level coach.
For sure.
And those high-level coaching positions are a bit, in my opinion, underpaid, Yeah. And that's making some of the coaches not stay very long, and when a coach is not staying very long, we just had a coach recently, a national team coach, quit his job because I don't know the personal reasons, or maybe it was something different. But maybe if he was paid a bit better, he could have maybe decided to stay, or maybe he asked for, I don't know.
I think,
to be honest, I don't know the reasons behind it, but they just need to get the level of paying the coaches to a better level.
I think the provincial associations are jumping on board, and but I think you're right. You need to, make this enticing that we're after results. And at the end of the day, money buys results. You look at the U.S. system, They're the best because they have a great high school system. You got a high school coach making $110,000 a year. All he's doing is coaching wrestling, and that's at one coach.
And if I'm underpaid, am I going to be interested in like really, like let's say like I'm a full-time coach, and if I'm underpaid, like I'm devoting a lot of hours. I'm traveling. I'm spending weekends with my athletes instead of staying home with my family. So there's a lot of things there to consider when you're becoming a full-time coach. And if you're underpaid, you know, like that's not a really good incentive for you to carry on for a long time. So we see it all the time. Like coaches that sometimes they transition from athlete to coach, and they stick around for a little bit, and they see that sometimes, oh, maybe I can make better money working a different job that doesn't require me to travel multiple weekends in 1 year, and
it's
you
tough.
I can just
as a club coach,
spend time more with my family. You know, it's being a coach is not an easy job. You know, so. So if you're not being well paid, that's not a good motive for you to stay and stick to the job. So if slowly the budget for the coaching staff goes up and they're better paid, and this is not just like at the national level, I'm talking about provincial level, I'm talking about the club level. The club level, it's really where things start, you know, sometimes like most of them, they're running this as like a volunteer base, but if you were to pay more your coaches, right? Let's say you have a couple coaches in your club. If you were to pay them and really make more like a professional thing, maybe even if it's part-time, you know, but you're still paying them a good salary, they're going to be willing to stick around a bit longer.
Well, I think in order to do that, you know, it starts at the bottom. You know, the prices that we're paying or athletes are paying are dirt cheap. You look at BJJ prices, you know, $150, $180 a month. You look at the average club price for judo, $40 a month.
Yeah.
You know, and you can have former national team members teaching here, and some Boschmo with a blue belt at a BJJ club who started 3 years ago,
and is still charging more than the judo.
More than you. So, like, I think as you know, as a province, or as a country as a whole, we need to bring it up a little bit more, not to steal from the client or the athletes, but to set a value on what you're worth. You know, and I look at you look at BC and you look at Alberta. Alberta's been the #1 club. Lethbridge Judo has been the #1 club for 3 years or 2 years in a row. 3 years in a row. You know, Johan Beaton's out there. The guy's dedicated. All right. You look at BC. BC was bringing nobody to Quebec Open until Jeremy got out there. Now Jeremy's bringing 100 people to Quebec Open. So you're right, 100%. If you pay the coach and he's determined, he will motivate. The athlete's going to be motivated to be successful.
And the coach being motivated, that motivates the athlete, that motivates the team, and that brings the team to the next level, you know. So that starts, like you said, at the bottom, at the club level. If you can start paying your coaches a bit more, and like that goes, okay, but I don't have the money. Okay, so maybe charge a bit more. Like maybe you're not charging enough for your classes, and we're too nice of a people sometimes. Like in judo, like we don't want to charge much but in a way, like that's taken away from like the value, like you said, of judo. You know, like if you're not charging enough, then they're gonna say, okay, maybe I'm only paying $40, so like this adding a lot of value, like. Okay, I can leave this, to the side, and I only paid $40, so who cares, right? Yeah. But if they're paying $150 a month or $100 a month, they're gonna think twice before they quit. Before their parents are like, "Oh, listen, you're gonna go to your practice because I'm paying for $100 a month."
That's the gymnastics, and with Emma, it was almost $500 a month. Yeah. One kid. This is a little bit outrageous in my mind.
Yeah, it's a bit too much.
They work in a small group and then get results. So we're going to go right into the next one, all right? I'm going to combine these two questions. So USA Judo has always had some very good results at the Olympics. Yeah. They have a tendency to somehow always manage to get a medal at the Olympic Games until recent years. In the last 2-3 years, there's only been, 2-3 people that have taken international success. And how do you feel Judo Canada's gradual but continued success compares to that of USA Judo, where they have these like one hit or two hit wonders where they have big successes, but then they just fall off the cliff.
I don't like know entirely how the system works over there in USA in the US, but I know for a fact that some of the athletes that work with top level coaching, like, and they're followed like on a daily basis by the highest level coaches, like Jimmy Pedro is one of them. Jason Moore is another guy who has brought some great players to the international scene. You know, they don't really have big groups.
Yep.
They have very small teams. You know, they're working very closely with each of the athletes. You know, and if you compare to Canada, we don't have a lot of athletes. You know,
yep.
But the small amount of athletes that we have, is each and every one of those athletes getting the full attention from the coaches. They're being followed, and they have plans for their training and things like that. So in a way, like focusing on specific athletes is good, you know, like what they did, but now they focused a bit too much, you know, because they had one or two players, and now so they were just focusing at the top of the pyramid. So now the guys at the bottom, they pretty much dropped out, and now you don't have those guys coming up, you know. So if you're too focused on the top of like athletes,
and the ones that are
good.
Still the top
they're gonna perform.
Are older, you know.
Yep.
And Angeli Delgado.
Yep.
You know, Colton Brown, and Del Popolo a little bit.
Yep.
You know, these guys are older. You know, I don't see a wave coming up. You know,
That's
at Junior Worlds, Cadet Worlds, they did not win one match.
For too long, you know? They were focused on certain athletes, like 2 or 3 athletes that they thought they could bring some big results, which they did, you know, throughout their coaching staff.
But I don't think that had anything to do with USA Judo. That had to do with
more on the club level,
Jason Morris and Jimmy Pedro.
Jimmy Pedro, and
you know,
the medals in the last 2 Olympics, I think, came from Jimmy's club, Travis and Kayla. So I think they have a good system there. But then what is the rest of the country doing, right?
Yeah.
Are the clubs, you know, if they're working separately, if they don't have a centralization, if you don't have one national training center in which all the teams are you know, coming together, the provinces or states there coming together to train, are the coaches like in the other provinces or states there?
Yeah.
Are they well prepared? Are they like well?
I think USA Judo as a whole is a total flop right now.
Yeah. Right now they have to find a new like
you have no
strategy to really
money.
Bring it to the.
I mean, they should fire every single person that's in USA Judo.
Yeah.
You know, they have no, you know, plan for their cadets. They have no organized, you know, if you're a black belt, you can just give somebody a black belt.
Yeah.
You know, you have 350 million people in your country compared to Canada's 30 million.
Yeah.
And you can't, you know, produce multiple, but in every other sport they're producing multiple.
Look at their system in wrestling. Like they produce every Olympics.
So I think it becomes down to just, you know, I know there was some financial issues, money went missing, and this and that. I don't know the whole detail,
like,
but
mismanagement of funds.
You know, I definitely think Judo Canada's gradual approach since, you know, about when I was about 18. You know, we didn't used to go to Europe too much. I went by myself when I was that age. Just by myself, I'd go to Europe. You know, and now we're sending, you know, big teams, and so, you know, the gradual approach I think is working good. We still have, we still have to reach that next level, and hopefully, you know, even myself as a coach, I hope to be part of that, to develop and, you know, push Judo Canada even higher, you know, because I think we can be better than we are, even though our top, you know, 10, 12 athletes are phenomenal. You know, I think we can have, you know, 30 people that are taking, you know, if we have the right coaches in place.
For example, Slovenia.
You know?
Slovenia has it's a very small population, very small country, but you know they have top performers that can pull results in many different international events, and that's not just one athlete. It's like several different athletes, right? So their pool is like more expanded in a way that maybe they're not focusing just on one athlete or 2 athletes. It's expanded to like a larger amount of athletes, so they're getting, you know, a proper focus and strategy for their training, for their competition, getting the proper right amount of attention, you know, also, so they can develop on their own. Because if they're not getting attention from the coaches, like it can be detrimental to their, you know, confidence and things like that. You know, if you're getting attention from a coach, the coach is coming to you to help you. Yeah. But if you're not, you're just like feeling left aside. I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? You know, there's no point. My coach is not coming to me. I'm not saying Judo Canada doesn't take care of their athletes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, if more athletes are taken care of,
Well, as a club level to build up, right?
That too, yeah.
Just like having, again, it goes back to our point about having, those retired athletes, whether or not they went to the Olympics, World Championships, or just fought in Europe. These guys can be very beneficial to our system if maybe we can open up some club grants from the provinces, or Judo Canada goes and starts helping out grassroots
if you go into
judo.
the financials, there's so many things that can be done. So many different programs that you can
go out and find sponsors.
Find sponsors. It's one thing, and maybe really creating some more events across Canada that are going to bring money, in terms of the budget and things like that. Charging a bit more for some of the things. I mean, not talking about membership, because membership sometimes, like, we have a club, we know how sometimes it's expensive, for membership, to be paid. However, there's so many different ways to really go and get more funding. But the funding, I think they have enough funding. Is really just putting the money in the right place. And that comes back to like what I said earlier today, in which the money has to be spent more like on the athletes, like on the field, and the athletes are not getting much. That $2,000, and that's if you're carded. If you're not carded, you're not getting anything.
Yep.
And good chance you don't have major sponsors, because judo is like a small sport.
In 2004, right? My dad gave me 1 year. He said, "Hey, I'm gonna pay your 1 year in Montreal," and I think we racked up $20,000 in travel that year, and I got carded by like 5 points. And on our carding system, that's not a lot of room, So I was a little bit lucky. And then, a year later, I was ranked top 5 in the world after the 2005
So you
World
see, like,
Circuit.
you never know when an athlete that's like a junior and he's getting the proper attention and the right amount of funding throughout his junior career. And then when he transitions into senior, he already has a good base, right? He already has experience and things like that. And keep receiving funding for, to get more exposure, like, training camps. And I'm not saying, like, it should be like a giveaway. Like, it must be based on performance. If you're performing, you're getting more funding, right? But it has to be, like, a bit more wide and a little bit. And I think USA Judo, that's, they were focused on 1 or 2 athletes and not focusing on the bottom, the second layer there of the pyramid. And now the second layer is not there anymore, and it's the other guys are far away. They're not at that level yet, so they have to rebuild their system.
I mean, I watch Travis Stevens talk, and a lot of people don't like him. Some people like him. I like watching him. Because he just tells it how it is. He's just like
the straight facts. Like,
he's just like, yo, this is it.
Like, guys,
if you don't like it, you don't like it.
If you don't do it this way, and he has shown a lot of success in his career. So he has a how can I say, he's trustworthy in a way that what he's saying in a way is right. It's what needs to be done to make changes and to put judo and USA Judo in the right direction. But I think in comparison to USA Judo, Judo Canada, maybe now it's a bit like a step above in terms of like the organization itself, the staff, the coaching staff, the athletes, the centralization, the facility, everything is there for the athletes to perform at the higher levels, like high performance.
So now we're everybody knows we're in the middle of a pandemic. We got COVID-19.
It's affecting everybody.
We got the 2020 Olympics got pushed back by a year. Is it possible from an added year on tour, if they get back to qualifying, that we see some people jump in front of the other? I'll go over the list that I feel is okay for Olympics, or the people that are in the mix, and that's we have 52 kilos Ekaterina, 57 kilos Jessica and Deguchi, 63 kilos Kat Bepe. We got 70 kilos Kalita. 73 kilos, we got Artur or Bouchard. 81 kilos, we got Antoine or Etienne. 90 kilos, we kind of Zach.
90 kilos is a bit of a push. Like
90 kilos is...
They're still in the mix, because like now you have an extra year, right? So you look at this, like they have...
an extra year and Pan Ams, right?
That adds a lot of opportunities to go and pick up some big points. So like there's no one really out of the mix there.
In 90, yeah.
In
90 is pretty, there's like
and
two
there's
or
three guys there that can, pull results, like Zach, There's
I mean, even in 73.
Nahas and Louis, so those three guys, if given, if they need to step up, they need to go and go after some big results, and that's
at the end of the day,
on
it's
their
all
own,
about, you got to put the results in.
Got to put the results.
And 100 kilos, we got Shady. Kyle is back from his injury, he's still in the mix, Is there a possibility, you think, that these guys that are in the mix can force a fight off? And if they do force a fight off, do you think it's right? Do you think it's a bad marketing by Judo Canada not to have that live?
I think in a way it takes away from the fans of judo. Like myself, I would love to see.
Dude, I think it's the worst idea to make it close.
Deguchi against Klimke, that would have been a great matchup to watch. And I don't want to watch this on television. I want to watch this live.
You're not even. I don't even think you're allowed to watch it on television. And that's where it comes down to me. Is like, okay, look, it's no lie, okay. And I'm friends with these guys.
Yeah.
They want Antoine to go. Plain and simple. He's the guy that they put their money in.
No, results-wise, he has produced more results.
But if Etienne gets into a fight-off position, okay, and this is, Etienne beat Antoine, okay? He beat him on the World Tour, and these are just facts. If he gets into a fight-off position, is Etienne or is Jessica going to get a fair shake from those refs? Is she going to have a fair referees? Nobody's there to watch it.
We don't know what's going on.
There's not anything public. It's closed doors.
Yeah, that's
not good. From my standpoint as an athlete, I'm lawyering up.
Yeah.
This is getting brought to the COC. I want a fair fight.
Yeah.
I want outside judges. I don't want Canadian judges.
An open public fight, because for the athlete as well, that adds a little bit of more pressure, and you're going into the Olympics, so you kind of it's a good test for them to feel the pressure a little bit in a way, And, fight-offs are good, to make it fair for everybody. Okay,
it's great atmosphere, man.
If the athlete has won twice against this certain athlete in a fair way, there's no, misjudgments or things like that, then he earns the spot, and that's it. I think ultimately it's taken away from the fans, we're athletes, and
we're talking about building judo, right?
Yeah.
This is the best part. You advertise as TSN, Sports Center, RDS,
swimming.
Everything.
They have their trials
my buddy,
on TV. CBC.
One of my best friends, he went to the Olympic trials.
Yeah.
He had broken the world record at the previous Olympics in 2012. Okay, he made the final. He broke the world record in the semis. He made the final. He went a little bit slower. He got fourth. Okay, he retires. He comes back that was 2008. Sorry, he comes back for 2012 Olympics. He's right back on his pace. He had a bad day in the pool. He lost.
Yeah.
He doesn't get to go.
Yeah, that might
You've got to
be,
perform on the day.
On the day. That's it.
And I think from a fight-off perspective, if there is a fight-off, Deguchi and
for sure.
It's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So for me, I want to take the stance that this should be open to the public. This should be a marketing.
Oh yeah, totally.
You have the number 1 and 2 ranked player in the world.
Make
huge
it
event.
A trial, this is the trial for the Olympics. You have.
But you do this. You
3-4
have
matchups, right?
You have maybe a little. Maybe you do it. There's a tournament going on. Okay, a senior tournament. Maybe it's at the Elite 8 Nationals, and then there's lots of time and there's lots of action to watch in between the fights. And then this is the second fight.
Or maybe on Saturday to run the Elite 8, which is everything can be condensed into one day. And then Sunday is a fight-off. That would be
this would be phenomenal. You do it at that Tohu Arena.
Yeah.
This is
it needs to be televised. It needs to be open to the public. I'd love to go live and watch it, to be honest. I would bring my friends and my guys from our judo clubs. They would love to go and watch, too.
Oh, it would be sold out, guaranteed. And it would be so good for judo to kind of get to that next platform in terms of how BJJ is everywhere. We're lucky, like I said, in Quebec. We got, a crazy amount of clubs in a very small space just here in Montreal.
Yeah.
You go to Toronto, you got one club here, and then 50 kilometers later, you might have another club. It's very spread out. It's not
Toronto's
the same.
a big city. They have more clubs now.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's not the same as condensed here. So like BJJ, every gym has BJJ.
I would love to see those fights. I think that would be really entertaining to watch. Man, you got the best in each of the divisions, right? Number 1 and number 2. They're fighting off for a spot in the Olympics. How sweet is that? So, I think, and to make it fair for everybody too, the athletes as well, to make it a fair, we don't know what's going on like inside doors. Obviously,
they're not going to be trying to screw anybody. But
the judges are fair.
You know,
they're professionals. But you never know what can happen, right?
Yeah.
And that really adds another element to like the trials and the fight-offs in which there's the crowd, there's extra pressure.
How are you supposed to get
the
pumped
media,
up being at the INS? That's where the fight-off would be, at the INS. Like, that's the fight-off for your Olympics?
Your regular
Come on,
ritual.
you have to have that. You have your cheering section. Yeah. This is judo, man. Yeah. This is sport. You can't handle a couple people cheering. You wait till you go to the Olympic Games, and everybody's going crazy.
Like I said.
And it's going to be Deguchi's or Jessica's first Olympics. Why not give them a little bit of pressure? Yeah, give them right.
Not that they don't cope
winning
well.
At
They're winning
Perry,
at the biggest
everything.
event. So
Olympics though is a different
they deal well
monster,
with pressure. Right? So
look at Limpartaliani. He went out to Australia at the Olympics. He's reigning world champion.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. All right. So
even on that fight day, anything can happen.
100%.
If the guy is not feeling well, if the other guy has a good day and he's on a better level that day, the fights are going to be close because these guys are number 1 and number 2.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have Antoine who is like at a different level because he has earned so many great
Obviously,
results.
the favorites.
Anything can happen in one day, right?
Yeah.
You have you see this all the time in the Olympics, in which we just said it. Limpartaliani, top Georgian fighter, losing first round to an Australian guy who's not really ranked.
Nobody, would have predicted some of the results that you see at the Olympics.
No, it's crazy.
That's the Olympics. That's the beauty of it, right? So the IJF tour, they've been pumping money into it. They're getting more worldwide coverage. CNN, I think, is covering it. Fight Network's covering it.
Yep.
What do you think about it? What do you think about the IJF tour?
I think it's a good, the events have been running really nicely, for TV especially. You have a nice setup, for TV. With the rule changes, I'm not going to go into there because, I sort of like the old style of judo with bigger throws and leg picks and things like that. It made the field of play a bit more open for those big techniques. So that would have been probably good for media and for TV to have those spectacular like Tegurumas and those things. Not talking about that. So in terms of the events, they're well run, but in a way, like the athletes still, to get them to the superstar level of like tennis players and, like F1 drivers, obviously it's a totally different thing. Right? Those are pro sport, sort of like pro sports, right? They're being marketed the right way. The athletes are being marketed the right. They're starting doing it now. You see, like more like
100%. I think the IJF is doing. I think
they're taking the proper steps to market the athletes as well on a more like a global scene. Like they're superstars, which is good. But at the same time, those athletes getting paid enough? No. You win a tournament, you win 5,000.
Yeah, win the biggest tournament in the world. Win the biggest tournament in the world.
You're the number one player. You win the world championships, you get, I think, 6,000 or 8,000.
Yeah, I think they started implementing bonuses for the world ranking. Number 1 ranked players getting bonuses. But, I mean, it's not spread out across the field.
Out. It's one guy.
You look at the 120th ranked player in golf, he's still a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
So judo, I think, is on the right track. When I won, you got a handshake and a flower, and you said,
you go home. That's it.
And then I got a bill.
Oh, they're definitely their marketing has stepped up. They're doing the proper steps to like bring judo to the next level in terms of marketing. The events have got much better since like we used to fight in like arenas that there was nothing there, like not even like proper like change rooms and things like that. Like you remember like. But now they're taking the proper steps to like make those events like more like. How can I say, for the media?
I think it's
and for the crowds around too. They're more they participate more.
This
in
goes
those
back
events.
to my question about Judo Canada, and I really don't feel we need to send and spend that extra $5,000 to $6,000 to send a media guy anymore.
No,
I can watch everything live, and I can do all my video reviews. So like I feel like there is a little bit of wiggle room. Hey, let's send this guy. He's not funded. Let's give him the money instead of.
It's just like, take for instance, like if you were not funded for world championships and the media guy is being funded. That's like a bit of, that's a bit offensive, I'm not taking it personally, but, like you're saying that the media guy is fully funded and your number one guy who's made the Olympics doesn't have a dime for this trip. He's not funded in any sort of way. Like, how's the athlete going to feel like?
And I mean, really,
is this for real? Like,
I mean, what is this actually giving us? Because we can go back and we have it all there anyway. So I understand that.
Oh no, the IGF has done a phenomenal job in like putting everything like online.
Oh yeah, you can just search
everything's
your name.
Accessible. Yeah. You can play back all the fights. Go back to like years like 2000 and up to like 2012 or something like that now, or the database something.
Yeah, I don't know how long it went back. Like, I'm not on there. I mean, I even actually was speaking to Fighting Films. I was actually speaking to Fighting Films because they put up a post on social media and said anybody that wants fights from like 2005 to 2012.
They have all the fights.
There's a guy that used to like videotape around, and I was
just
really,
like, you don't need
now you don't.
Everything's online. You don't need anything. So
we're gonna go into. So I mean, I don't know. You obviously heard about Silva testing positive just recently. She's from your home country. What do you think, the percentage of athletes that are on the world ranking list? I don't mean athletes that are just, club guys, but on the world ranking list, like top 100 athletes, let's say, in each division. What do you think the percentage of athletes who have used performance-enhancing drugs is? Not are on it necessarily at a given event because they can go off of it slowly. But what do you think the percentage is?
I think judo people are sort of like fair in the big picture because like people have they have gone through like the judo training, so they know the values of respect and things like that, respect for your opponent. So I don't think all of them. They go into those like things, but it has happened before that, athletes got tested positive, and it's not uncommon that we see every now and then an athlete testing positive that we don't expect, right?
Yeah.
Some people for weird reasons sometimes, like, Rafaela Silva was a very weird, I don't remember what it is, but it wasn't.
It's like something to do with her inhaler, but, that trace is also in other aspects, illegal.
So in general, I think the judo people, and I don't think they go much on that route, but we don't really know, right, what's going on into those countries, like in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, not saying those countries, like, they have high-performance athletes, they perform, throughout the years. But we don't know. We can't really tell, right? If their national bodies are going in there to test the athletes. There was a big scandal with Russia. I mean, but who knows? Who's doing the proper testing and not? That really.
Well, there were some, judo athletes that tested positive for the same substance that the Russian tennis player tested positive for.
Yeah.
And, they didn't end up getting sanctioned. I don't know exactly the reasoning why. But
like I said,
I want to say 15%.
15?
Have used. Does not mean that they are currently on it, but have used. And I'm just going to go and say that number for the sole reason that, a lot of these countries, I remember, I don't know if you remember going into, that Belarusian training camp in Steiky, and the women's shot put and javelin team came in. They had full sideburns. And then just miraculously, or just by chance, a couple weeks before the Olympics, they all drop out of the Olympics. But I want to say, that's other sports. But I want to say, if it's proven in Russia that they have a government-funded doping program. Do I think that it's far-reaching across the board? No, but I still want to say that about 15% of people have used it throughout their career. Maybe to recover from an injury faster, maybe, there's a million different reasons. They go away for 2 years, they come back, we have no real proof.
It's hard to judge because, like I said, it's really hard to see what the other countries are doing in terms of testing. I know here in Canada we're tested. You've been tested so many times. I've been tested so many times, and never any issues. But we don't know what's going on in these countries.
There's a country I'm not going to name. Okay. They have a few athletes, maybe like 5 of them, and all of them are winning Paris. You know what country I'm talking about?
I have to say,
They have a crazy good women's team, and they have one 73-kilo guy that won Tournoi de Paris. Kosovo.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I'm going to go out. These guys are phenomenal athletes. They're good throwers. But you can't tell me that every single one of them that's on their team is physically the strongest person in their every division. Yeah. And then they bring in a new girl, and she
really
just physically
stronger. Perhaps the reason for their success is because they're a very small group, right? Small country.
But then I got more evidence to back,
focused into a couple of athletes. But, they also have the exposure of being in Europe. So, they travel all over the place.
100%.
They go to training camps and things like that.
Kelmendi disappears, comes back. Disappears, come back. Oh, she's injured here. They tested her. They wanted to test her at the training camp in Paris. She did not. She said no.
By who? By the IGF?
By the French Federation came to test her. She said she didn't trust them. She didn't get sanctioned. You got nothing to hide. What do you mean you can't? They're coming there with their credentials.
And if it's from a different country, they're allowed.
Yeah,
right?
It's the World Anti-Doping Association. These type of things.
Yeah.
So that just leads me to believe, and I've heard a lot of people talk about them, and I've talked about them, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That every single one of their top players, is just the strongest. What are they just? All of them are Fraser Wills.
Yeah.
All of them are that natural.
Really strong,
it doesn't make
sense.
sense.
Like I said, you always have a couple good talents that can emerge from those small countries. Judo has a global.
We're on a global scale.
Global pool of athletes that can perform at the highest level. You got a girl from
gonna
Colombia. She's a triple world champion.
Yeah.
You got a girl from
For
many
sure.
different countries that can pull some big results. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're a judo nation. Maybe one athlete or two athletes.
Doesn't necessarily mean they're doping either.
But Kosovo is now the judo nation because their number one sport over there is judo. I think Kelmendi was the first Olympic medal. Is that correct?
She win.
It's a recent country. It's only been a couple of Olympics, but still, it's.
No, I just want to say that when there's questionable asterisks beside people like. Oh, I'm not going to dope because I'm not going to, do this test. It raised question marks because the question marks were already there. I had a big question mark about the Hungarian team.
Back in the
What
days?
happened? I had a question mark. I saw Ungvari train at a training camp, and he did a morning sprint circuit. Then he went to a 2-hour training, did circuits after that 2-hour training, had lunch, took a nap, probably went back, did every round, and I was like, that guy's doping. 2 months later, he tested positive.
Really?
3 tournaments in a row. Because we had Paris, Hungary, and Germany. Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, I just beat him in Tokyo. I didn't do that tour. I was injured. All of a sudden, he goes from to medal
level?
in Paris, silver medal, gold medal in Hungary. He fights his brother in the final.
Attila?
Yeah. Now, it's, we always thought there were some people that were using performance-enhancing drugs. So that's what leads me to believe, 15% of people. I don't think they have the same testing regulations as us. We have to fill out a whereabouts forms where we're 1 hour every day where they got to know where we are. They're not on the same. The World Anti-Doping Association was created after the Tour de France in 1997 or something like that because of all the doping scandals that were going on.
Yeah.
This is relatively a new thing.
Some other sports are on a higher scale,
100%.
In terms of percentage. Take, for instance, maybe weightlifting. That's probably the highest.
Weightlifting.
I don't know. It's hard to judge.
Hard to tell.
Cycling. There's been a couple of athletes that
winter
tested
sports,
positive.
this and that. But I would reach to say that 15%.
And
are going to do it. Yeah. So we'll move my question to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, BJJ. On a world scale, how did it get so much more recognition than judo? Do you feel we dropped the ball somewhere, or?
No, I think they just marketed their sport a bit different than
that's
judo.
us dropping the ball, right?
In terms of at the club level, these guys are really promoting their clubs on social media. They're doing videos. They're doing all kinds of different things to promote their videos. they're building their brands. You were talking about, different organizations like Gracie Barra has a big global brand. Some other BJJ clubs have a global brand, because their marketing is done very well, and they're running their clubs more in terms like a real business. Like they really want to grow the membership, they want to grow their numbers, their financials.
Well, that goes back to judo. We need more business-oriented clubs.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think not everybody in judo is a business person, but you can sort of like learn a few things once you start doing it and running your own business. But the BJJ people seem to have like this very business-oriented mentality in which they want to not only grow the sport but also their membership, and the athletes are really being marketed in a different way. And they market themselves too. The athletes themselves, they want to grow their own personal brands, So on social media, they're posting, they're like going to events, they're posting all the time. They're like, partnering up with companies and things like that. So it's easier for them to get sponsors and things like that.
I think in the MMA world too, obviously brought jiu-jitsu to the top as well, right?
BJJ is very, in MMA, if you don't do BJJ, you don't stand a chance, right? So judo is, it's, used in MMA too. It is considered like a very good weapon for people that can, throw and, do takedowns and defend takedowns. And on the ground too, it's pretty much, there's the same base, right? The judo and BJJ is same base. We do chokes, we do like arm locks and things like that. So, but like I said, on the marketing side, BJJ has, gone up a notch. They have marketed their businesses differently, their sport differently, and that has, attracted more money from investors, from like sponsors, and that really helps to like bring the sport to the next level. And now you see like maybe not worldwide as much as in judo, because judo is like practice
for sure.
Almost in every country, right?
Judo worldwide is.
But in North
huge,
America,
BJJ
is way more popular than judo. In terms of numbers, in terms of members, I would say members too, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%.
More members, bigger events, more sponsors, athletes that are more well recognized. You go on Instagram, you have hundreds of guys that have like hundreds of thousands of followers just because they're getting more recognition and they're being seen more on social media. So it's like a marketing play, to be honest, and now the IGF is starting to slowly change their brand a little bit, market the athletes a little bit better. Judo Canada, they have been starting to, change that as well, improving their marketing, using social media to like promote not only the sport but also the athletes. So that's a good thing, it's going in the right direction.
So that brings me right into the next one.
Need more coffee here.
It's to our team, okay? What are our realistic goals going into if the Olympics actually happens? Is it going to be our best Olympics? Because I really believe we have a team that we can really smash.
Well, if you compare it to like the previous Olympics, obviously I was part of the previous two Olympic teams. If you look at the results before the Olympics, leading up to the Olympics, now you have, before 2016, it was pretty much just like Antoine with the big results, just leading up to the Olympics. Now you have 3 guys, 4 guys really performing to the highest level and getting those big results. So like, I think we have more chances of like really, getting. Last Olympics we didn't win a medal, right? So this Olympics, I think the medal is going to come. Maybe multiple medals, maybe 2 or 3. I'd like to think like 3. Maybe Antoine gets on the podium, Shady and maybe Deguchi or Klimkate. But if we win 1 or 2, that's outstanding.
And I think that's going to jump our standing. It's going to go back down to funding, and this goes back to when we're going back with Judo Canada and Judo Quebec and marketing and BJJ, they market white belt world champions. Okay. We don't even market our world champions. We do a little bit, and it's getting better in the start right now. If we can make grassroots judo not just about being recreational, 100%. It's a great sport to do.
Yeah.
It's a recreational. You're building your confidence. You're getting stronger. You're making friends. You become part of a family. Doesn't matter what club you're in.
That's the social aspects
you should have.
Very,
very, very
strong.
important.
Yeah, very important.
But when they get to about 13, 14, 15, I really believe that coaches need to tell these kids what is possible with the sport of judo.
Yeah.
Show them the right path. If you don't feel you're qualified enough, get them the right coach that they need, because you see coaches hang on to athletes too long. This would happen with Judo BC for a while. We're like, why aren't these athletes? They're national champions and they just stop.
Yeah.
That's their Olympics. I'm national champion. I'm the stud.
Yeah.
And they never move to Montreal, and they never end up getting to where the results. So we need to be pushing them from 13, 14, 15. In the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
totally.
Okay, so we're almost getting through here. Life after judo. Obviously, we heard about your business.
Yep.
You're a father now. Tell us a little bit about the change of being single, on tour, 2008 Sergio.
2016 Sergio, you mean?
But I mean 2008 to 2012 to 2016, all the way up to 2020. Now you have kids, it's a lot different.
Yeah,
right?
So basically the one of the big reasons why I retired, perhaps I had a couple more years more into me in terms of judo. I could have gone maybe a bit longer, but the main reason why I decided to retire was mostly because of my kids. 2016 Olympics, my girlfriend, she was already pregnant at the time. So now she's my fiance.
Yeah, there you go.
But, it really changed my perspective, did I really want to continue to travel, 12 weeks in a year, maybe more sometimes, and stay away from my kids and not see them grow up? And, I really want to stay close to their, daily routine and lives, and I want to see them every day. So that was a big point for me. I'm thankful now that, that my two kids are nice and healthy, the beautiful family. But the transition was very smooth, like I said, I was very busy with a couple of other different things, right after the Olympics, my business really started to take off, so I decided just to change the focus from my athletic career to the business, and I think that really helped me to, have a smooth transition too. Not a lot of people have this smooth transition from athletic career to the afterlife of sports, right? That's sometimes very difficult, like we spoke earlier today. But, the things that I do, I don't train as much. I wished I could train a bit more, but I don't have much time now with, my two kids. They keep me busy. I'm working also every day, long hours, so not much time left. So
not much time.
What about you? You still train a little bit?
I started since I've been closed from COVID here.
Yeah.
So, obviously, when you're all in, I think that's what made you a good athlete, right?
Yeah.
You're 100% dedicated to something.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a goal to stay in shape, or I didn't have a goal to try and stay in shape for. So I didn't, I was like, okay, I'm still doing a little bit, but I'm focused on building my business. I'm focused on having a good relationship with all my kids.
Yeah.
I want to, watch them do their sports, So,
you changed the focus a little bit, right?
Went to the back burner a little bit, and then maybe 10 weeks ago when all this stuff started.
So you start training now.
Started training a little bit, started getting back into shape. I figured, there's one more year till the Olympics. Might as well make a run right now.
Come back, the big comeback.
All right, so to finish up here, I have 10 rapid-fire questions for you, okay? Make the answer, a short answer, but try and have fun with it, okay? Sure. So you're going to answer them whatever you feel comfortable, okay?
First thing that comes to mind.
First thing that comes to mind. If I told you had a choice between $1 million or a guaranteed system that you would become Olympic gold medalist, what would you choose?
Olympic gold medalist.
Olympic
for sure.
gold medalist.
No
all right.
That's
I choose the same thing, but
money can go away.
Money can go away, right?
You spend the money, whatever, but the title stays forever.
That's it. That's it. Okay. All-time favorite judoka, but you can't choose me. All right.
Okay. I would say that's a tough one, to be honest. On like current athlete or like past
All time.
athlete?
Any
All time?
athlete. Could have been a, Koga, if you looked up to Koga back in the day.
Well, I would have to say Choi, a 60-kilo player from Korea.
Okay, yes.
He was an amazing player. And my number 2 would go to Soborov, who's also in my category.
Yeah.
This guy was phenomenal.
I know.
He was throwing left and right. And
he threw you with a highlight reel throw one time.
He's a three-time Olympic medalist. He's not an Olympic gold medalist, but for me, he's like probably one of the best technicians ever.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal athlete. I mean, it's tough to choose. You got a crazy amount of very tough
Choi
athletes.
and Soborov, maybe because they're my division, I think those are, my top 2,
All right. If you were on death row, what would your last meal be?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I would go for a big ass. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. You're allowed.
Maybe a big sushi dinner.
Okay.
That would be nice.
All right.
Japanese. I like Japanese food.
All right. Next one. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
I don't understand that question.
You wouldn't. You're Brazilian. All right. It's a question.
Next one.
You never heard that riddle before?
No.
Okay. Favorite city or country you've been to? You can't choose Brazil though because.
Okay. I would say Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Probably one of my favorites.
That's
so nice. The people are so nice. The city is beautiful. Obviously, the entertainment part too. You can go to different places and clubs and things like that. At the time, we had to have some fun, right?
Okay. If you could be a professional in any other sport, what would it have been?
F1.
F1?
F1.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, that's an unorthodox answer. Okay.
Though, if I could choose what's the best sport to be in, I would say surfing. To be a surfer would be amazing. Look at these guys' lifestyles. They're surfing every day, or on the beach, getting tanned, and
that's the Brazilian coming out of you right there.
Surfing is probably one of my favorite sports.
What was your favorite type of music to listen to before a tournament?
Rap music.
Rap?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Any artist in particular, or just
I don't know.
Latest
Drake.
hits?
Drake.
Right.
I love Drake.
All right. So what was your biggest challenge to overcome throughout your career?
Definitely my injuries. I had quite a few injuries, and coming back each time was a different scenarios and a different type of same injury. I had 3 knee surgeries. Same injury, but at different times in my career. The first one was just before the 2012 Olympics, so I had that goal of making the Olympic team. So I had to come back strong. Probably came back a bit too early, and that caused me to have my second injury, and that kind of threw me off a little bit. But I think that really helped me to stay focused on my career, and now I see that there's a big difference in terms of if something goes down, not in the way that I'm thinking, if I'm brought down in some way, I really can stand back up and really keep things going. So that really helped me in my mental aspect. Even today, I go back to those times, and it really helped me to go through, even today, sometimes you go through some difficult times.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
These times are difficult. COVID-19, not always easy, with the situation, that we're experiencing. But, we hope for the best. We stay positive, and that's it,
All right, next one. Do you have any superstitions? Were you a superstitious guy?
No.
Nothing?
Zero.
You just, whatever happens.
No,
I know, I roomed with you. It was crazy, man.
I don't wear the same boxers at every event or same socks. Some people like to have superstitions, but...
do you believe your laugh has helped you make friends in judo?
Yes, definitely.
100%, right?
People make fun of me, but people love me, too, for that.
All right. Okay, so last question. We're going to finish up here. If you had the world's attention, the entire world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say?
Wow, that's a tough one. I would say, just throughout your routine and everyday living, just stay positive, and there's gonna be some difficult times, and if you're building a business, if you're building a family or a career in sports or whatever career you might have, just stay positive and really work it through. put in the hours and time and discipline, and everything's gonna go well. That's my main thing. That's
your 30
my way
seconds.
of thinking, you know, like.
All right.
And yeah, lately so much hate about, you know, what's happening.
Only 30 seconds, Sergio.
Okay.
Only 30 seconds.
Is my time still
That's
on?
it. Time's up.
Okay, good.
All right. So I want to thank you for, you know, sponsoring this today and being my first guest on the show.
Yeah,
you know,
it was my pleasure. It was fun to have a talk with you.
We're going to get better. So for all those that are watching, guys, you can follow my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Tritton Performance. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook as well. And thank you for joining in.
All right, cool, man.
Perfect.